Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we take a look at a creepypasta called Follow Me, Free Me, an Earthbound creepypasta. I know we've done plenty of those, but this one looks like it's pretty good. It even comes with its own media. So sit back, relax, and let's see what Follow Me, Free Me has to offer. I wouldn't call myself a hardcore gamer, but I can tell you that recently gaming has become a part of my life. It began last year when I first came across Steam, and after playing over 200 hours of Team Fortress 2, I became hooked to gaming again. Before that, I hadn't really touched a gaming console in over 10 years, with the last game I played being a game that will forever hold a place in my heart, Mother. I remember that I always played the game whenever I had the chance of discovering it over the internet, making myself the best I could become. I never owned an actual copy of the game due to the fact that it was never officially released outside of Japan. And because of the high prices that circled the Mother series games and merchandise on the internet, I made do with a ROM of the game. Regardless, though, I enjoyed the game to bits, and even after I defeated Giygas for the first time, I felt I had to fulfill something and get Ninten, Anna, and Lloyd each to level 100. Needless to say, after over 40 hours of grinding on Mount Itoi, I had completed such tasks. When I played it for the first time in my childhood, I remember kicking Giygas' ass with my overpowered team, but attacks I used to mortally wound the trio wouldn't even hurt. I felt like a true hero, having fully completed the game. That's all I remember of the last time I played that amazing title during my teenage years. Having recently become bored of half the games I owned on Steam, I started hunting down something that would cure me of my boredom. I eventually came across a game called Starbound, and all the memories of playing Mother came flooding back to me due to how similar the name was, due to the English translation of Mother, Earthbound Zero. I bought the game after looking at the screenshots and reviews and began to play it. While I can say I thoroughly enjoyed it to bits, as I was a large fan of Terraria and Minecraft, I longed to play some good old Japanese RPG after the memories Starbound gave me. The most obvious thing that would have to have been was to have played the ROM I owned of the game. But I remember having always wanted to own an actual copy of the game in some form. I hunted online, but the prices were higher than I was willing to pay for, some slight nostalgia. It then occurred to me that the local game was selling old SNES, NES, and Game Boy games that someone had weirdly left by their door one night. So instead of binning or donating them, they decided to sell them. I headed over straight away. When I arrived there, I noticed the area where the games were being sold was looking fairly bare. It seemed I had been beaten to it by the other retro fans from around here. I decided to look anyways, hoping that I may find some gem that the others missed. And that was when I saw it. A copy of Mother 1 and 2 hidden behind a Super Mario Bros. Box. I smiled, grabbed the box, and had a quick check just to make sure that the game was even there. And it was, along with the instructions booklet and other bits of paper that normally came with Game Boy Advance games. I took it to the counter and purchased it, and the woman who served me only asked £10 for it. That was a whole lot cheaper than the £50 they were going for on eBay, and sites like it. So I paid up and took the game home. Feeling happy to finally have a physical copy of Mother to love, even better, I could play Earthbound, the sequel that I never got a chance to play. Once I had finished my nostalgia trip, even if the game was in Japanese, I had played the English ROM enough times to know what needed doing when. So I was assured I'd be fine. Now after arriving home, I looked for my Game Boy Advance so I could begin playing, but was unable to track it down. It was after I looked in my box of old game consoles that I found my GameCube with the Game Boy player attached to the bottom. Feeling luckier than I already was, I assembled all the wires and a controller to play and plugged the GameCube in. After testing the old console with Metroid Prime to make sure it even worked, and then the player with both Super Mario Land and Pokemon Sapphire to ensure it worked as well, I took Mother 1 and 2 out of the box, and as I did, the bits of paper that were in there slid out. One of the pieces, though, immediately caught my eye. It was a notepad piece of paper, something that you'd never find in any new Game Boy Advance game, with a whole paragraph of writing on it. The writing covered both sides of the paper, and when I found out which one was the beginning side, I started to read. If you are reading this, then it means that you are the new owner of this copy of Mother 1 and 2. The game is normally in Japanese, however I am a coder, and I was easily able to translate what the game said into English, as I speak Japanese rather fluently myself. However, there is something I must stress. It will make no sense to you now, but if you play to the end you shall see. I uncovered something hidden in the coding, something never meant to be found. The real reason why Mother and Earthbound are on the same cartridge. Whatever you do, don't listen to him. Don't follow his orders, no matter how he threatens you. Do not follow him. Do whatever you can to not follow him. Even if you have to turn the game off. Be safe, my friend. And I hope to God you were able to do what I couldn't and destroy this awful thing. Good luck. You'll need it. I chuckled a bit after reading it because I knew that this was someone trying to spook me into destroying a perfectly good and valuable game. I pulled all the paperwork back into the box, including the note, and inserted the cartridge into the Game Boy player. Upon starting the game up, I did indeed see that the game was in English. The letter had been right about one thing, and I was grateful that I could finally enjoy the game. When it came to the game selection screen, I chose Mother and my nostalgia trip began. The entire experience was an amazing one, with memories flooding back to me as I ventured through the world. The gameplay was smooth and no glitches that I couldn't myself cause intentionally, no out-of-place English text or untranslated Japanese text. It was all perfect. After playing for what felt like an hour, I arrived at Yucca Desert. I followed the plot that commenced there, getting the melody from the cactus and flying in the plane, until I got the tank from the man who owned the plane and the tank. Having the tank, I headed straight to the robot boss for the desert, R7037, but the encounter wouldn't initiate. It was as if he wasn't there. After ramming the spot a few times trying to activate the battle, a text box appeared on the screen. The tank has become stuck in the sand. Ninten and Co. continue on foot. The tank disappeared, and the party was standing in the spot where the tank was. I paused the game and looked up on the internet for glitches involving R7037, but aside from the option to completely skip him, I found nothing. Perhaps it was a bug in programming. I wasn't convinced though, because if that was so, why did the tank become stuck in the sand? That never happened to me before, or in any walkthrough video I'd even seen. Nevertheless, I continued through the game. Shortly I arrived at LA. Knowing the plot like the back of my hand, I soon had Teddy defeated and ready to join the team. He was going to be an asset in grinding and making my way through Mount Itoy, more than Lloyd could ever have been. So I was happy to have him. It seemed the game had other plans for me though, however, because instead of Teddy getting Lloyd to leave the party for him, he simply joined in as a fourth character. Again, I looked this up and found that it was possible through a glitch involving Pippi. However, I hadn't performed the glitch at all. I didn't even know it existed until now, so I was rather shocked by it. But if this meant a stronger team for the trials that lay ahead, I was content with it. I continued on with the full party, enemies standing no chance against us now. As would have happened through the Pippi glitch, Teddy's stats never actually appeared on screen while I was in battle, so I would have to check him out of battle to ensure that he wasn't going to feint on me. I wasn't that worried about him, however, because his stats increased dramatically and at a quicker rate than any of my other party members. Sooner than I thought, most likely due to the increase in power with Teddy and my team. We reached Mount Itoy. Just like all the other enemies encountered, none really stood a chance against our full power team. It was before I went into the healer's house, though, that I wondered what would happen when R7038 attacked, as Lloyd was in my party. After I questioned this, I then realized that it wouldn't even have to happen, as I could go straight to the boat and fix it with Lloyd there. And after doing just that and encountering Eve, my party then had 5 members in it. Although Eve was a supporting character, so it made no real difference to my battle plans. All it did was guarantee that my team was untouchable, with Eve taking all the hits from my team whilst Teddy, Ninten, and Eve herself dealt major damage to enemies. I started to grind myself up to high levels after noticing the gap between my team's power and level. After about 30 minutes of leveling up, I headed towards the penultimate final boss, R7038XX. I would be in for a last small surprise, as after reaching this point where the battle usually begins, my party stopped moving. A text box popped up. I can go no further than this. Good luck to you, children. Eve exploded. And I was rather shocked by this, not simply due to the fact that my bodyguard had committed suicide on me, but due to the fact that I had fought none of the R703 series of robots. I guessed that I wasn't going to fight R7038XX, and I was right, as he never even appeared. Eve must have blown herself up in order for me to get the 7th melody from her wreckage. As I did after the text box had disappeared and I could move again. What had happened to robots was all I could think of about as I headed towards the end of the game. I was in for some luck, it seemed, because I encountered no enemies after Eve's demise. I made it to the tombstone, got the last melody, and then warped to Magicant, where I sang it to Maria. Once warped back, the stones were removed from the final road and I headed in. Then it popped up on screen, and it was a completely black screen, with only 2 words in the center, in a blue text color. Follow me. That was it, I thought. No one's going to believe me about this. I grabbed my high-quality camera, took a picture of the screen with the words on it. I then pressed the start button, and the screen disappeared. I was in the cave leading up towards Giygas. For completion's sake, I tried to go into the room where all the pods are with the people in, but when I tried, this black screen came up again. No. I was worked back to the start of the small cave. No matter how many times I tried to go in, the same message kept coming up. Annoyed at this, I headed straight for Giygas to finish this. What was a tad chilling was the fact that when these text screens pop up, there was no sound whatsoever. I ignored it, however, and pressed onwards. As he usually does, Giygas rose up in his mothership to face me, and the battle began. But this would be a battle I would never forget. Giygas drew near. R7037 drew near. R7038 drew near. R7038XX drew near. I had nothing to say. This was never meant to happen, not in any form. Not even a glitch could have caused the 4 most powerful bosses to appear all at once. I then realized why the robots had never appeared at their encounter points, aside from R7038, who for all I know, may very well have been waiting to ambush me at the healer's house. I instantly knew that this was a fight I couldn't win. Sure, I could sing to defeat Giygas, but with the 3 R703 class robots there, I'm not gonna get a chance. The following conversation ensued, and I took screenshots whenever I could. Ninten, you fool. You really think you could stand a chance against me? R7037 attacked Anna and knocked her out instantly, regardless of her high level. Trying to thwart the inevitable, just like your great-grandfather. R7038 attacked Lloyd and also knocked him out instantly. Nothing can stop us now, can't you see it? R7038XX attacked Teddy, and knocked out my only other character aside from Ninten. Ninten, you alone, I may save you. Just you alone. Board our mothership with me. The game then gave me a yes or no option, and I instantly recalled the note and the warnings given. Don't follow him. I wasn't sure if the note was referring to this or something else, so I was unsure of what to pick out of fear of what would happen. Eventually I chose an option. I selected no, and R7037 attacked me for 1/3 of my health. You may wish to consider revising your choice of words. Again, I selected no. R7038 attacked me and left me on my last 1/3 of health. I wouldn't be so sure, Ninten. I selected no for the last time, and R7038XX attacked me. His hit left me at 1 health. There is no other option, Ninten. When the choice box popped up again, the only option was yes. I pressed it. Join me, Ninten. Together we shall rule the galaxy. The battle then ended. With my 4 opponents disappearing, there was no "you win" music or notification of my victory, just a black screen for 5 seconds with the white boxes on. The game then cuts back to the mothership leaving Mount Itoy, and my party was watching. I instantly noticed that Ninten was nowhere to be seen. The game cut to black for a final time. I sat there waiting for something to happen. Nothing. I reset the GameCube and the game started as normal. When it took me to the game selection screen, I couldn't see Mother as it was blacked out. My only choice on there was to quit or play Earthbound. Being as naive as I am, I selected Earthbound. I had seen many Earthbound walkthroughs before, so I knew I wasn't going through this completely blind. I was on the lookout for any other glitches that could occur after what happened in Mother. The first thing that was extremely noticeable was during the first 10 minutes of the game, during Buzz's speech. And in the future, all is devastation. Giygas, the universal cosmic destroyer, sent all to the horror of eternal darkness. And another was him, called Ninten. Similar to you, Ness, he was only a child, yet he was capable of untold evil. However, you must listen. I picked up the notepad paper that had the letter on it and reread it. Something never meant to be found. The real reason why Mother and Earthbound are on the same cartridge. Was this what he was on about? Why the 2 games were bundled together? I mean, I already discovered that Ninten had been mentioned in Earthbound, but what else would he influence in it? I pressed on. The rest of the game played out as normal, even though I was sure there would be other odd occurrences throughout. He wasn't mentioned at all after Buzz's speech. Not even in the Cave of the Past did anything involve Ninten occur. When I was at the entrance to the hallway to the Devil's Machine, however, the first of many things occurred. The music died upon me at reaching that cave entrance. When I headed in, just like on Mount Itoy and Mother, the screen went black and some blue text appeared in the center. Free me. As soon as I saw this, I knew I was going to get a repeat of the Giygas Battle. After pressing start, I headed onwards towards Giygas and Porky, the penultimate and final bosses of the game. Nothing unusual happened during the pre-battle cutscene, or during the Porky Devil's Machine battle. It was only when Porky turned off the Devil's Machine that things occurred differently. Instead of it transitioning from black to the second part of the Giygas battle, it instead showed a battle screen similar to the one used in Mother. However, there was no box to display my team stats, so I had a feeling that this was going to be more of a scene than a battle. The music that plays when you fight Giygas and Mother started playing. To add to the feeling of ambience, two enemies emerged from the black background, and needless to say, I was rather shocked to see one of them. Giygas drew near. Ninten drew near. Ninten was working with Giygas? No, this wasn't true. How could this have been? How could he? I pushed aside my questions and let the sequence commence. It feels good to finally be free of that machine. I can breathe once again. What is this, Ninten? You don't know them either. Maybe Porky could have explained it if he didn't run away in fear. Are you here to prevent what I tried to do oh so long ago, children? The game gave me a yes or no situation. After what happened with Ninten, I knew, would most likely lead to my defeat. Still, I pressed it. Feeble-minded creatures, as always. The form of Giygas' attack was inexplicable. Paula fainted. When the Paula fainted text appeared, Paula's ghost sprite appeared in a black box where my team stats would normally be. This occurred 3 times for each of my support characters until I was left with only Ness. Now do you see what happens to things that oppose me? Ninten, finish them off. I was expecting Ness to faint after that text appeared. Instead, the screen cut to the peak of Mount Itoy where you fight Giygas. Anna, Lloyd, and Teddy were stood there, and I could hear the 8 melodies playing softly in the background. This lasted for about 30 seconds, and then the screen transitioned back to the fight. Ninten, I said finish him. No. What did you say to me? They freed me. What? I followed you, and now they freed me. I'll never do anything for you again, you twisted alien. It was at this time that Ninten disappeared from Giygas' side. The game then made the sound of when someone joins your party, and the sprites of Ninten and Ness replaced those of the unconscious characters in the bottom box. I quickly realized that Giygas must have forced Ninten to do his bidding after abducting him, and that Ninten despised doing his orders. He must have only gone with him to save his friends from a worse fate than being left alone on Mount Itoy. I also understood what the black screens with blue text on them represented. It was Giygas, trying to manipulate the player into doing what shouldn't be done. By this point, however, the realization came a little too late into the game. The sequence had continued. If that is what you want, then die like a fool. The form of Giygas' attack was inexplicable. Ninten fainted, Ness fainted. When they both fainted, the box that the set of sprites was in disappeared. I was expecting a game over screen, but the sequence continued. And now you, the puppeteer controlling these meager children, feel pain. The form of Giygas' attack was inexplicable. Suddenly, the screen went white and the speaker started emitting a low humming sound. As it did this, my ears began to hurt. Stubborn and ignoring the pain, I pressed every button trying to get the screen to change, but it didn't. I wouldn't even have noticed that my ears were bleeding if it wasn't for the fact that blood was dripping down onto my controller and hands. Scared and shocked, I realized the only thing that could have done this would have been a sound coming from the speakers. It was at this time I noticed the screen go dark and a single red word appeared on the black background. Die. As soon as I took a screenshot of this, the sound instantly increased to max volume and a humming emitted from the TV made it unbearable to hear. My ears bleeding like there was no tomorrow and my nose beginning to as well. I fell on my knees in pain, crawling towards my GameCube. I tore out as many cables as I could until the screen and the sound had died. Relieved though, I lay my head down to rest and fell asleep. When I woke up, it was late at night. I took Mother 1 and 2 out of the player and stared at it for a bit before snapping the cartridge in half. I wasn't going to make anyone else go through that, nor was I, myself, going to do that again. I picked up my camera, checked that my evidence was still there. Thankfully, all the images were safe and sound. I then checked my ears and nose in the bathroom mirror, and they had stopped bleeding. The spot where I'd fallen asleep had a puddle of dried blood around it, so I knew they had continued to bleed after I fell asleep. I cleaned myself up before scrubbing away the blood and throwing the 2 cartridge halves in the bin. I grabbed the box and all of its content, including the letter. I put them with my other games. Finally, I put the GameCube in the player away after quickly testing them both out again to ensure my frantic actions earlier hadn't broken it. And luckily they were fine. Even though I had already rested after stopping the game, I went to bed. The next day I headed to the hospital and told my doctor that my ears and nose had started to bleed due to a high-pitched sound my TV made the other day. He took a look at them and told me that I had slight ear damage and that my hearing wouldn't be completely 100% for a few weeks. Aside from recommending not listening to things on a high volume, there wasn't anything else he could do to help. Grateful for the advice, I headed home. Now I'm sure you're all saying things like, well, why hasn't anyone on starmen.net found this yet or told us? Or anything like that. I'm sure someone on there has discovered it, and I'm sure after going through what and I'm fairly sure the previous owner suffered, they wouldn't want to worry anyone or make them go through the situation. While I can't convince everyone here not to dig into Mother 1 and 2 files, I certainly can tell you to not try messing around with this alternate story. If you notice anything that shouldn't happen, then you turn that game off there and then. Don't follow through until the end. Don't try to beat it. And most importantly, don't follow him or free him. Heed my words. Be safe, friend. Well, that was a pretty long story, but it was interesting. Now first off, it wasn't creepy like I had thought of first going in, at least in the classic sense. Allow me to elaborate. If this was to occur in a legit copy, it seems technically feasible, and that's what makes it good in that sense. If you were to actually play Earthbound or Mother, and this were to happen, it wouldn't be like it's something from another game just tossed in here and forced, to, I guess, be creepy. Nothing was overblown to the point of making you cringe or feel totally out of place. Now, acquiring the game was a tad awful. Really, someone just drops a super rare game out like that in front of a huge game retailer, and that same retailer decides to sell quite possibly one of the rarest games in the market for just £20. I mean, they may not be the best retailers, but I'm pretty sure they have a little bit of intellect on not to do that. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, friends. You're quite a stretch. But that aside, this creepypasta offered media, screenshots rather, which really excited me because there's very few times these stories come up with their own media. And even then, those look fairly realistic, right? Here, having them makes you visualize the story even better, and that's what makes it a more absorbing tale, to say the least. Now, it did seem kind of cringy with the dialogue, towards with Ninten and Giygas, and maybe I have some ignorance to the Earthbound series. I do, it's not exactly a series I go to and play all the time, so I don't know everything about it, obviously, and it might affect this whole perception of it, but the whole idea of how it played out just didn't make it as creepy as, say, other creepypastas out there. It didn't really make much sense to me. But, I mean, sure, we saw die in red letters and I guess in some way these loud noises, which, I guess if they're loud enough they can make your ears bleed, but probably not as heavily as they're portrayed over here. My point is that the story itself, it doesn't seem like it fits overall well. I feel like it's a little too fanficky, but rather than just a creepypasta. But that being said, the story was fleshed out nicely. And although it's a little too lengthy, and I'm not going to keep you here for too long, this video's already gone for over 20 minutes, it's not enough to be a crime or something. It's a good story, and the use of media was very nice. All in all, I'd have to say, well done. Seems like we've done plenty of Earthbound creepypastas, we have, and this one is good. In the end, I do have to ask you what you'd rate it and what you'd change to make it better. This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Dislike it if you dislike it. This is me, Mudahar, and I am out.